Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Christopher Pellegrini and Stephen Lyman here, reporting live from Japan. I'm going to get my mic out of the way so it's not right in the top of the screen. And happy Shochu'sday. Welcome back. Episode 129, Kanpai, to everybody out there around the
Good
world.
morning, Kanpai.
Good morning. How's everything going?
Good. I actually got in a morning run,
Oh,
winding down my year of running, and looking forward to having a different resolution next year. Looking forward to running shorter distances. But it's been a good challenge, created some good habits, that sort of thing. So, but as we are on the eve of December, start looking forward to a new routine maybe in the new year. I've talked to several of my friends are orthopedic surgeons, and they're all knee surgeons. They all said to me, "Well, when you're ready for your knee replacement, call me."
ah,
So they're not big believers in running as a form of exercise. So probably get back to more cycling, more walking sort of things. But
gotcha.
that's also why it's actually quite cold this morning, but I'm drinking iced coffee to cool down. And a little shout out to Lost Lake in Chicago. Unfortunately, this tropical drinks bar survived the pandemic. I was there for their reopening party last summer, and then they closed about 6 months later. Just the realities of hospitality in America these days. It's really tough to keep small independent businesses running.
No joke.
So more power to all of those that are doing it and doing it well.
Yeah.
So anyway, cheers. Yeah, what are
Cheers.
folks thinking? What have you been thinking about?
Oh, not a whole heck of a lot, quite honestly. Just getting into the holiday season and thinking about all the activity that's going on around the world to promote new things to new people in new contexts, and hoping that Shochu and Aomori get into some of those conversations and what can be done to facilitate that and those sorts of things, of course. But yeah, I don't know if we have any booze news per se. Do we?
Not at the top of mind. We went through a lot last week. If you're curious about recent news about booze, you can go back and listen to.
That's true. We did. Yeah,
we
you're
spent
right.
about 15-20 minutes on it. I did a quick search, but nothing came up as being particularly relevant. I mean, of course, we could probably talk about a new expression of a Japanese whiskey release every week if we wanted to, but
Pretty much.
it'd be boring after a while. I did have somebody, speaking of holiday gift ideas, I did have somebody reach out to me and ask for recommendations for Japanese whiskey brands available here in Japan, not in the States. So, and that was an interesting kind of thought experiment. If you were giving a gift to somebody, what would that bottle be?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And it's like my home sipper. If I had to pick a Japanese whiskey, like this is what I'm going to drink at home, and I could just pick one bottle, it would probably be the Yoichi non-age statement from Nika. I just love the smoky expression you get off of those coal-fired pot stills.
Mm-hmm.
But for a gift, I might give like the Komagatake limited edition annual release bottles, because they're not super expensive, but they're year, they have the year of bottling on them, so that's a nice little keepsake memory for folks if they're not going to drink it all at once.
Yeah, and they're great bottles. Komagatake.
Yeah,
that's a solid brand.
Yeah, they make good stuff. How about on the shochu side? What would you, if you were going to gift somebody something that you wanted it to be special, and maybe they don't know much about the category, or they, but they're curious, or you just want to introduce one of your friends or your family members to a new drink?
I get this question a lot, and I hope it changes. I hope it evolves from how it normally is. A lot of times it's, I want to get a good shochu bottle for my dad. It's like, okay, mom could use one too, as could everybody else in the family. But I often base my answer on where the person is located and what is either likely to, well, usually what is likely not to be very, very common in that area. And with online sales being what they are these days, and how you can find pretty much everything on Amazon or some similar service, get your loved one something that they can't just walk through the store and find on the shelf very easily. So for folks that are up in the Kanto region, up kind of where I live, I will often just refer them to a couple of my favorites based on category. I mean, if it's a a Kokuto sugar shochu, then I'm gonna say Ichiban Bashi, and that tends to
Hmm.
be a crowd pleaser for just about everyone. Or
Yeah,
if
no
it's
doubt.
gonna be, if it's gonna be a rice shochu, then I'll steer them towards something that's atmospheric distilled rather than vacuum distilled. And then
Hmm.
vice versa, if it happens to be someone who's in Kyushu, or their parents are in Kyushu, or their sisters in Kyushu, then I might recommend something that's a little bit strange from up here. So some of
Hmm.
the Tokyo Island shochus, a few of them are actually kind of more accessible, not quite as off in left field or right field, or I don't
Hmm.
know which of those references implies more funk, but it's
Hmm.
something that maybe one of the barrel aged ones that's available up in Tokyo, but not really available anywhere else. So I guess that's where
Sure,
I
sure.
how I approach those things.
Yeah, I think that generally is how I would do it as well. I think on the maybe on the rice or barley shochu, I might go to something a little bit easier drinking, um,
Ah,
or because I mean, as much as we love all the dairy and grain and the really deep, rich notes you get from that, can be an acquired taste. And so with rice, I think partly just for its shelf presentation is torikai. I just love that white label with the bird kanji on it, and
yeah,
it's such a beautiful drink when you've got somebody who might be curious and maybe knows sake but doesn't really know shochu. That's a great sort of transition for folks. And then just from a shelf appeal, you might be able to see over my shoulder the oishi.
yeah,
This is a barrel aged rice shochu, and it's got this. Actually, a lot of we see a lot of foil tops, but this has this textured gold foil top, which just gives it a much more luxurious feeling. And then it's got really, really nice washi paper label.
yeah,
There's only 25% alcohol, but it's barrel aged, and so you get all the vanilla and stuff that you'd expect. So that could be a nice one as well. Um, of course, for sweet potato, I have to, my home
yeah.
kura. I can't. Why would I give you anything other than what I help make? Because there's nothing more personal than that. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's interesting starting to think about gift giving time. But yeah, for someone here in Kyushu, I'm probably either going to something that's not readily available, maybe a rare bottling from a distillery down here, or I got a really thoughtful gift actually a couple of months ago from a colleague, and they got me a bottle of chestnut shochu from Shikoku. And it's just something I don't see around here, and his family is from the area, and so he brought that back for me because he knew that I love shochu, something from his hometown,
Yeah.
which I really appreciated.
Mm.
That's another way of thinking about it. So I guess if I was going down to let's say I was going down to Kagoshima to visit friends or something, I might bring them a bottle of Fukuoka shochu, right? Something they might not
Sure.
see so often.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's a cool thing to think about. And of course, once you get overseas, then your options are much more limited, but you've also got a lot more opportunities to surprise people because nobody knows what it is.
Yeah. That's definitely
Right.
true. That is definitely true.
Yeah.
Speaking of interesting expressions here, Mark Carlson over on YouTube is saying Nadeshiko. And
Yep.
the 67% barley, of course, is a requirement for Iki Shochu because it has to be
That's it.
two-thirds barley and one third rice in the fermentation in the mash bill. Iki no Kura.
Yeah. And
Yep.
that's made with Nadeshiko yeast, so flower yeast from the Nadeshiko, which is a species of cherry blossom. And that's the same yeast that's used in the brand that I introduced the other day, the 100% barley shochu from Oita that's available on ANA Business Class internationally. So
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I love the way that flower yeast expresses in vacuum distilled shochu. So nice choice there for Mark.
Good call, Mark. Thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah,
Okay, so booze
cool.
news was turned into actually
More
gift
personal. Yeah,
giving hour,
like
but yeah, I think that's
yeah,
useful.
yeah.
The main event
I already got
today.
your Christmas present, Christopher.
Oh yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've
I'll give it to
been
you.
assembling a box of stuff, so you can
Great.
expect that. But
I
main
appreciate it.
event today is the Chuhai extravaganza, and
Yeah,
in this
this was
case,
yeah.
yeah, I mean
This is
we've
inspired
been
actually by it. tweet thread by Yabai Shochu and
Okay.
Yabai Chuhai and Jason Rogers, who we had on the show a few episodes back, and he was kind of complaining about hard seltzer because it's made with malt liquor, right? And that's completely regulatory in the States, right? You can't sell hard liquor in certain bottle shops or not bottle shops, more like convenience stores
Formats
and grocery stores
yeah.
and things. Yeah. So you have to you use malt liquor, but it just doesn't taste very good. It doesn't you don't get the clean expression that you get from a distillate, right? A distilled spirit. And so Yabai is interesting in that they actually import bulk Japanese korui shochu from Japan, and they can in the States, and they make pretty nice Chuhai expressions that are available increasingly, I think, around the country, but they started out in California where Jason is based. But it kind of got me thinking, because I see so much attention paid to Strong Zero on Twitter. Now, it might be how my Twitter feed is curated, but like people just think of Strong Zero as the be all end all of Chuhais in Japan, the canned Chuhais.
That is so wrong. If you feel that way out
Isn't
there,
it?
please stop thinking that.
Yeah. But maybe before we get into that, why don't we talk about Chuhais more broadly before we get into the cans, right? And it's sort of this, I mean, you can certainly jump in whenever you like, but it's this very, very easy way to enjoy a refreshing, almost cocktail-like experience at an izakaya. And it's so easy for the staff to make. Because, you know, when you go to an izakaya, there's not a bartender. There's not like a professional who's mixing drinks and, you know, using bitters and garnishes and things like that. Well, there might be garnishes, but it's usually like pre-sliced lemons or limes.
Right.
But it's just basically, at its simplest form, it's koroi shochu, or vacuum multiply distilled shochu, basically low-proof vodka mixed with something. And that's something, it's served cold, typically. And usually fruit juice is with or without sparkling water added, right? It's for some bubbles. And sort of Chuhais and sours, I think of them as sort of the same category. They might be seen as a little bit different. But I think that's basically what they come down to. Is it, you know, your classic izakaya drink, if this is what the kind of thing you're going to want, is usually like a lemon sour.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And
I'm
referencing our Japan Distilled episode 25 from last year, right about this, almost exactly a year ago. Geez. About this part of Japanese drinking culture. This is a pretty detailed dive into what you can kind of expect to find at a lot of izakaya if you come to Japan, and how certain places kind of have their own signature chuhai. And of course, just to reiterate, one of the, you know, where does the word come from? Chuhai is it's short for shochu highball, right? And that used to be the case. It used to be made with always with some sort of multiply distilled shochu, but these days, honestly, it quite frankly can be made from pretty much any spirit base, whatever is cheapest. And I think the more common way to run into these things, of course, is in can format, much like Yabai, as you were mentioning before, which is available in the States. Canned Chuhais is just, it's a force in the convenience store, in the supermarket. There is a wall of these things, and they come out with new ones all the time.
Yep. They took up more space in the convenience store and in the supermarket today than beer does, which is just shocking to me, because beer for so long dominated drinks in Japan. Jason did chime in. We appreciate him.
He did, didn't he? Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, so somebody started advertising an Asian-inspired hard seltzer, saying they were the first Asian-inspired hard seltzer, and Yabai's been out in the market for at least 18 months. Fortunately, calmer heads prevailed. But his point being that you would have made a Chuhai if you were actually being Asian-inspired, because hard seltzer doesn't really exist in Asia. So, and I have a hard time disagreeing with him. So it's interesting that, you know, and I guess you and I had talked about this a long time ago, and even other friends of mine, like, why aren't Chuhais popular in the States? Why aren't they on like every shelf? And I think it's largely because people weren't sure how to get it in on the tax front, right? It's a really challenging regulatory regime to try to get these things into market
It
and
definitely
make
is.
them affordable. Where if you make it in America with malt liquor, it becomes much more affordable for the consumer and lower tax. So it's unfortunate because there are some pretty delicious canned chuhais. They've been made in Japan since, I guess, the cans since the 80s. So a good, going on 40 years at least.
Yeah.
And the first one was Hayaliki, I believe it was called. And it's just kind of expanded from there. Now, like you said, they're everywhere. There are always new expressions coming out. I can't even keep track. I feel like I don't know if they're changing cans or if they're changing like what they're doing. It's just like there's always something new.
It really is. Yeah.
For people to try. And it's just constant experimentation and innovation. And for a long time, I guess personally, I ignored them. I was perfectly happy if I went to the convenience store and I wanted to drink that I was going to grab usually a beer, and if not a beer, then probably like a whiskey highball, like a Suntory Kakubin canned highball, something like that. So I think that I was slow in the uptake, right? I know that just from my experience through my connections on Japan Twitter, the rigor for a lot of people, their road soda is a strong zero, which is a 9% alcohol canned Chuhai, and they come in tall boys. That's a lot of booze.
It's a lot of
and
booze.
There's nothing natural in those. It's all artificial flavorings. It's all made in a laboratory.
Cost performance
no
pretty good, but yeah.
No, they're
nothing else really
affordable.
Positive to say about the things. Yeah.
Now the reason it's funny because the picture that we used to promote this episode or this live stream was actually of the Strong Zero Chikuasa or Shikuasa expression, which is I think only available in Okinawa. So that was
okay.
That was the inspiration. Is an Okinawan specialty because that's the local citrus, and it wasn't any better than any of the other Strong Zeros. It just tasted vaguely of Shikuasa. So I'm here to say I'm not a big fan of the Strong Zero. I actually regret. I did a little sidebar in my book talking about the Strong Zero, and I kind of regret it.
So it mostly got cropped out, but
yeah,
it was.
But
just to
but
get
that
the
was
can in there.
Sure. No, what I mean is in my book.
I got you.
In the Shochu chapter, I did a little sidebar that talks about Strong Zero as a brand.
I see.
It did kind of break out. It made a big impact on people. But for example, Orion Beer had their own line of strong canned Chuhai in Okinawa, and they took them off the market because they realized that they were servicing alcoholics. Mm-hmm. People were simply using them to get blackout drunk. And they didn't think that was good for the community and or good for their brand, so they pulled it from the market. And I wish that the folks who make Strong Zero would have similar come to God moment.
I think we've talked about this before, haven't we? I feel like we've talked about it.
Yeah. And what's interesting for me is that someone mentioned in the chat, actually is here, Richard. He talked about the Coca-Cola canned Chuhai, and I don't have one of those with me today. But the first alcoholic beverage ever made by Coca-Cola was made here in Japan, and as a Chuhai, and they're great. They have little maikake labels. They use a little bit of fresh fruit juice. They're usually orange or lemon flavor, and they sell them at 3, 5, and 7, and now 9% alcohol. They just recently added the 9. They also added a 0, so you can now buy non-alcoholic Chuhai.
Getting back to their roots.
Yeah, right. You're basically you're buying an adult soft drink at that point, but they're still being marketed as Chuhai, or sours, which is just so funny to me. And everybody's coming out with the 0% now.
Yep.
To compete with the 0% beer, the non-alcoholic beer. So I think it's been a fun transition to watch. And in reading about this and learning about it, there really is like a sweet spot for the alcohol percentage based on what kind of fruit base you're using. And I think we'll focus mainly on fruit-based Chuhais for this discussion about what's in cans. You do occasionally get like tomato or yogurt flavored Chuhais.
Usually at a lower proof point.
Yeah. But you don't need 9%. It's just no reason to have a 9% can of industrial. Honestly,
if you're talking Strong Zero, I think
I think for the Coca-Cola, the 3 or 5% works just fine. The 7's
they're really good, and
the
7 The 7 is balanced enough. I worry about I worry about going a little north of that. I have tried all
Yeah,
3 of them. It was a couple of years ago at least when they first came
yeah,
out,
yeah.
because it was a
Every so
shochu
often
based
it's worth.
drink. It was great. It was
Yep,
like, oh yeah, this is
yeah,
going to be helpful. It didn't help at all. Like nobody else.
yep,
Everybody's like, oh, this is going to teach everybody what shochu is. No, it didn't. Like probably
yep,
12 people looked up what shochu was when that first was announced,
yeah.
and since then nobody has cared. So, oh
That's
well.
right. Well, they haven't really exported, have they? They
No,
yeah, it's
they
just
haven't.
basically here in Japan. They've got
Yep.
good packaging. I'm sorry I don't have a can with me here today. I did bring a few things out of my fridge because I've been trying to find like what are the good ones, because people often ask me like what are your favorite Chuhai, and I'm still kind of doing my research. Um, but one that I think we've talked about before on the show, and I know that I talked on the episode is this one. Oop, there it is.
Yep. Yep.
The
Okay.
Right. So this is an ume sour. What is it? Otona? Am I
Otoko.
saying that right?
It's for
Otoko.
men.
For men. A men's ume sour. So otoko ume sour. So it's basically not too sweet, nice ume flavor, and just enough alcohol. It's 5%, and it's made with 5% ume liqueur. So they're using
Okay.
the ume to make liqueur, and then that's being blended into the drink. And it's got a nice little saltiness like you would expect from an ume boshi. So it's got the kind of savory component plus the sweetness. It's really balanced. I like this one a lot. Probably the Chuhai I've had in my fridge more often than just about anything else. And it's pretty balanced. It's not bad. So certainly would recommend that over the
What's the
strong
price
zero.
point on that?
I want to say it's about one in my local supermarket. I think it's about 120, 130. 120, 130 yen, which is probably about $1 right now, a little under $1.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look at. It's 94 cents today.
Yep. Um, now, another thing that I don't know how new this is, but it's new to me, and that I just started paying attention to this sort of aspect of these, is the use of real fruit juice. Right.
Uh-huh.
That to me is kind of a key component because it gets you much closer to what you would get in an izakaya.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
They're making like a
A little
fresh
closer.
squeezed
Hmm.
lemon sour, grapefruit sour, that sort of thing. And so Kidian has this line. See that?
Yeah. The
That's
Honshu
28%
Shibori.
grapefruit juice. So 28% grapefruit juice, 6% alcohol, and it's lovely. It's really really nice. And the grapefruit juice gives you body, right? You get mouthfeel that you don't get from something that's completely chemical additives
Hmm.
to what it is essentially a clear alcoholic
It's this
seltzer.
science experiment with bubbles. Yeah.
Right, right. So that's just really, to me, that's one of my favorite is that grapefruit. And then I haven't tried them yet, but they do an orange expression that's 45% fruit juice. Sorry,
Nice.
my light is kind of,
Blaring it, but it's cool. Yeah,
yeah,
now you can see it. 4.5%.
45% juice
Oh,
in that.
45% juice. That was it. I read it as four and a
45%
half
juice.
percent.
Yeah, no, 45% juice. Like
There's
this is
no
getting up
decimal
there,
in there.
right? And that's 5% alcohol. I haven't tried that one yet. And then the other one that I found the other day is actually grape, and it's 60% juice.
Jeez.
And it's 4% alcohol. You see, they bring the alcohol percentage down when you're dealing with grapes versus citrus because it balances a little bit better. It's a little
Mm-hmm.
you need
You're
less
gonna
alcohol.
maul those grapes if you, yeah. The
Yeah. So,
ethanol
but I
definitely
I look
present.
forward to trying those because I feel like you often see, I don't know, 2%, 4%, 5%, even up to 10% juice. You rarely see above 10% juice in these
Mm-hmm.
cans.
Mm-hmm.
And so to see 28, 45, 60% juice, I feel like they're gonna taste better, right? They're gonna have more mouthfeel, more body,
Mm-hmm.
more real flavor.
Right.
So I'm looking forward to trying them. Um, and the last one that I have actually, I believe you and I have tried this before, and this is only 3% juice, but this is the Zampa Shikuasa Sour.
I haven't had that one before. I think I had it at one
Okay.
point in the fridge and I never drank it and somebody else did.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you
It's
tried it?
6% alcohol. So Shikuasa is again the local citrus in Okinawa, which we talked about at the top of the episode. This is made with awamori. This is not made
Mm-hmm.
with Oroi Shochu. It's great. This is, I think, right now probably my favorite my favorite canned Chuhai available in Japan. Not easy to find. I usually bring these back from Okinawa. They'll occasionally be in like my local Yamaya if they get a shipment.
Mm-hmm.
But you can taste the awomori, but it's really balanced with the fruit juice and the flavors. And it's unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, I guess it's not even an unfortunate. It's just that it's only the big makers that make this kind of thing,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Not just from an economies of scale, because canning is so expensive, and you need that relationship and
Truly.
that sort of thing. And
Absolutely.
this is, but even I think this was the other ones that I showed you. Even those Kirin cans, I think, are about 130 yen in my supermarket, even with lots of fruit juice.
Yeah.
But this Sampa sour, I believe, was about 300 yen,
Sure.
250 to 300.
Sure.
It's still quite a bit more expensive than using the industrial distillate to use authentic awomori or shochu.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some other canned shochu highballs, but they're more just to express the shochu with soda. So Ichiko has a
Yeah.
couple of expressions, right?
Yeah, I actually
other-
the only stuff I have in my fridge are a couple made by proper shochu distilleries. And when I say proper shochu, I am referring to the traditional sense. So honkaku shochu. This is made by Denen, and this is made by Sanwa Shurui. It's the Ichiko, essentially. It's the Chuhai. They're both 7%. They're both pretty recent on the market, and they, they don't use the industrial distillate, and then they mix with some sort of citrus. This seems to be, what is this made with? Does it even say? This one is, I'm not sure what citrus they're referencing over here in the photo,
Okay.
but
I actually
it's up
think
here.
you might probably the
green. It's
kabosu maybe.
probably or
That's a local
Hetsuka or something. And then this one from Denen, they don't really reference any sort of. They just focus on the fact that it's made with barley shochu. So yeah, like you said, it really is meant to be a vehicle for presenting the shochu itself. And these are made by honkaku shochu distilleries. Very, very new ripple in that market. I don't know how far it's going to go. Like you said, they tend to be quite a bit more expensive when set side by side against the 84 cents per can at 130 yen to the dollar exchange rate. So
you might want to put that Ichiko on Mekari or one of the auction sites, because I think that's the old canning. They've got a new.
It shows you how dedicated I am to trying these things. Yeah, it's in here. I don't know how long it'll stay.
It's I think I had tweeted about it recently through the Japan Distilled account, but Ichiko released. There's a red can and a green can, and they repackaged them. And I had been underwhelmed with the underwhelmed with the original cans from Ichiko, and I let them know. I was like, you guys can do better than this. Come on, you guys make amazing spirits. These were not great. You can do better. And the Ichiko employee that I contacted with that information said, yeah, I know. I hope they can.
I actually would prefer the larger scale ones, the ones that are made by the folks who make this stuff, behind me. They're not that good. They kind of took a stab in the dark at something and hoped for the best. And I don't know where they got them canned, but they probably shipped off totes of it to get it canned and everything. But they need to try.
They repackaged, they rebranded, they reformulated, and the new expressions are perhaps worse than the original.
I love it. Good work,
so,
guys.
They just lack flavor. They lack body. They're just. I mean, they're not flat because they're carbonated, but they're just not as expressive as I would hope, because I've sung the praise of Ichiko time and time again.
Oh yeah,
I really love their shochu. It's really so well blended. I was like, how could you guys miss so badly? Twice, actually 4 times. They've made 4 of these things, and none of them have been any good. And I give them a lot of credit for trying.
Yeah.
I just hope that they can get it up to where it's got the flavor and the body that that it needs. And the thing is there's I think I've talked about it in an episode before. I might have even talked about it on the podcast, that there's a collaboration between Oita Prefecture and the JA, Japan Agriculture, and they made a kabosu highball, or, that's sold in like every roadside, gift shop in Oita Prefecture, and it's made with koroi shochu and the local kabosu, the citrus, and it's delicious. It's a really, really nice drink. I'm like, how did they get it right? Right? How did they figure it out? And Ichiko, the biggest shochu maker in the prefecture, can't. So,
yeah, the mission creep, I guess. Somebody had an idea and they threw a little bit of money at it and resources at it. And they weren't, but they didn't throw enough at it to really perfect it, unfortunately. So maybe they'll get there. Maybe they won't. Who knows?
Yeah, and it's not like it's doing poorly. I see it in convenience stores all over Japan. Right? I was in Tokyo recently. It was right there on the shelf alongside all the other canned.
It is out there. It's definitely for folks who are going to drink a little slower, who want to, who want to try something. Well, it's also people who want to try something new, and Ichigo has the distribution network to push that through pretty easily if they really want to. And they made it a priority, clearly.
And that's the whole thing with how these things seem never ending. There's always new expressions of Chuhais because they're always looking for that market segment that wants to try something new.
Yeah.
Right. The people who line up on the first of every month to try the new seasonal hamburger from Burger King. Right. We're looking at you, Maya. There are people who will try everything new that comes to market just because it's new.
Starbucks, right? Every season there's a new latte of some sort, or macchiato or whatever.
Yep. And it's the same thing with these. There's a bunch of wine sours now have become a thing. There's all these wine-based cocktails, canned cocktails that shown up in Japan.
I've got I drank the one that was so I had one from Pony and Jigger from down in Singapore, and this one is a Shibuya cooler that's co-branded with SG Club. So Shingo Gokan. This was purchased. It's Seijo Ishii Select. Or Seijo Ishii Original. So this is made for that kind of upscale. Upscale, is that the right word? It might be the right word. Supermarket chain up here in Tokyo, maybe the Kanto region.
Whole Foods. Are they kind of like the Whole Foods?
Sort of, except on a much more compact form factor. Not nearly as expansive. And they tend to have a good amount of imported product. They tend to be more discerning in what they put on the shelves. And they went out there and they found a couple of famous bartenders to collaborate with to make some cocktails in a can. Cool. I haven't. It's still in there. I think I was saving this one because it's made in collaboration with somebody that you and I both love. So I'm relishing the opportunity to try it. Of course, I could just go down the street and get another one. So I don't know why I'm holding on to it. This is called the Shibuya Cooler, and this is 8%. And it says that it's made with a liqueur, grapefruit juice. And then Jozo yo no alcohol, other assorted things, Earl Grey tea, hojicha, tansan gas, some other fruit. So, yeah, interesting. Why not?
I'd like to try that.
A Chuhai is a cocktail, so.
Sure. I've seen a few canned cocktails, like proper ones, in, I guess our local version of that store would be Bon Rapas.
Oh, yeah.
PAS. And they have, for example, Kavalan whiskey highball and also Kavalan gin and tonic that are canned, and a couple of others that have shown up in there recently. So there are some other, canned cocktails, moving beyond just your Chuhai, which typically is just fruit juice bubbles and koroi shochu, but getting into some things where you're using other distillates and other flavorings and seasonings to try to get more than a two or three ingredient cocktail, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which is probably not very easy to do at scale, but
right. I've had, because I think who is it? Suntory with their gin. They do the gin.
Is it the
Gin
the
can
sui?
sui
Yeah,
gin
I haven't had that
canned.
yet.
I don't think it's a gin and tonic. I think it's just a gin and soda. I think it's gin highball.
Oh, okay.
But that I think they needed to punch up the citrus on a little bit, or the juniper. It's just not. It's again. It has the same sort of, not as much flavor as you would expect, as the same thing that happened with the Ichigo expressions. So
Gotcha.
but,
Huh. Yeah,
yeah, and
it's a wild world out there. There's so much. The tyranny of choice is real.
it is. Yeah, and it's funny because somebody recently asked me like, "What are your favorite canned Chuhai?" And I was like, I almost feel like we need to do like a March Madness grid,
Mm-hmm.
like
I've seen
find as
that,
many
like
different Chuhais
have them
as we
face
can
off against
find,
each other.
and
Yep.
but we should do it as a blind taste,
Yeah. No,
right?
it has to be blind. Absolutely
Yeah.
has to be blind. Has to be
What
double
if we
blind.
maybe collaborate on that with Kombini Boys or something? They're
Yeah.
natural partners on a Chuhai competition. They do that sort of thing all the time with their Twitter polls and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's. I'd be down for that. I'm sure I'd learn a new thing or two, which I'm always
Yeah,
up
sure.
for.
There's
So yeah, Combini Boys, slide into the DMs or whatever. Do you invite that? I'm not sure you should really.
yeah.
Okay, don't take me up on that. Anyway, so this has been much more involved than expected, and thanks in large part to the gallery of very interested and interesting folks, especially on Facebook right now, and a little bit on YouTube. So thank you to everybody who chimed in
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Chuhai, and
Sure.
you know, a category of canned drinks, also non-can, that does have a lot of potential. Moving forward into new markets and finding new consumers. Obviously, we started this conversation talking about hard seltzer. If you appreciate hard seltzer, then it's not going to be a very difficult leap for either your mind, your heart, your spirit, or your stomach to get to something that's a little bit more like what we drink here in Japan. And that sounds like, and Yabai seems to be leading the charge on that. So check these things out, definitely, if you can get your hands on it. And yeah, we need to set up that blind tasting competition, the March Madness of Chuhai.
I like it. Maybe
Yeah.
that's our winter project, possibly. I just wanted to jump on one thing here. Mark asked, why is canning so expensive in Japan? He has a home canning setup for his home brews, and
Sure.
I think the answer is in the end of his statement that home brewing isn't really allowed in Japan, and so you don't have the market infrastructure for people to can at home. You just don't have even the equipment available for people to do that because you're not allowed to, and so
There's no market for it.
Yeah, it tends to be large canning facilities, typically owned by the big suppliers, Suntory, Kirin, Asahi,
Right.
and
don't forget the
that,
can size problem for this,
Yep.
for like shipping to the States. There is no U.S. market for canned Chuhai, right? Why?
yeah, because Japanese cans are 350 ml typically, and Japanese U.S. is 355, and you can't fit
You
five
can't
more
cram 5 more
milliliters.
mils under the lid. Isn't
Yeah.
that crazy? That's the reason,
Yeah.
right? A typical
5
canning
milliliters.
line here. That's how inflexible things can be, and nobody's gonna readjust things for a run of 6,000 cans. You know,
Right.
we've got to be talking in the hundreds of thousands in order to be getting access to those economies of scale and potentially creating something that could be really successful and
Yeah.
self-sustaining.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it's metric versus imperial raises its ugly head again. I think because 5 milliliters is a third of an ounce.
it's nothing.
It's
Yeah.
about 0.3 ounces.
It's like this much of a splash on top, but
Yep.
can't reliably fit it in there without things splashing all over the place and gumming up the works and messing with the seal on the lid.
Exactly. So yeah, All right. Well, we got to give some thought to this competition. Looks like we have some volunteers for judging as well.
Nice.
I'm sure there's lots of folks out there that would like to participate. Maybe it's more than just you and I making a value judgment. So,
Well, maybe that's something. Maybe this is part of our upcoming endeavor to bring some sort of mail service to this whole thing, and
sure.
you get a judging pack. You can order the judging pack, and I don't know. This could be fun.
Yeah, it's not a horrible idea.
Huh.
We'll give it some more thought, and we'll let people know. I think we're probably overdue for another Chuhai episode anyway, on the podcast. So maybe we'll noodle this competition idea a little bit, and then announce it when we record that episode.
Yeah,
we should have a new episode up very soon. I'm just derelict in writing up the show notes a little bit. Next episode is going to be on the oddball expressions in Shochu, which we've recorded and Rich has edited, and I just need to write up the show notes a little bit. But new episode should be out very soon.
Sweet. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for episode 129 of Shochu'sday. We hope that you are having a good start to your week. Hope you have something nice to sip while you're finishing out your Tuesday. And from both of us here in Japan to all of you out there around the world, a very hearty and heartfelt Kanpai.
Kanpai.